Hello, how you doing? This is T.M. Stevens, and tonight is my privilege to be right here talking to you from the Musician's Corner. There is no business involved. It's about art. And there's no publicity from any kind of TV thing, man. It's just plain me and you. So let's get together and we will talk about the music and the art. Hang in there with me and let's do this, y'all. And it's my pleasure. Welcome to the Musician's Corner. Like this. Hello, this is T.M. Stevens, and how are you? Welcome to the Musician's Corner, and we're sitting right here in T-Bird Productions, my studio, The Lab, and this is where I record all my music, create everything, play keyboards, everything. And a lot of times I hire musicians to come play. Sometimes they just come over and play and we jam, because I'm old-fashioned with that. And that when I'm in here playing, the drummer is sitting here in the studio, I'm playing the bass and engineering, the guitar player is playing, and we're doing it real, and I use amps. I don't really use all the stuff in the computer to make it sound good. I use microphones and amps, and that's the way we recorded in the old days. Speaking of the old days, how I started, I was 11 years old, and I'm sitting there in the Boy Scouts in Harlem, because I used to live in the Bronx, South Bronx, and I was like, whoa, this is intense. And the scout leader said to me, you know what, after the scout meeting, because I used to come all the way from the Bronx down to Harlem for the scout meetings and then go home. And my mother was always worried about me on the train because I was 11 years old, coming from Harlem to the Bronx on a train, you never know. But the whole thing was, I said, okay, I'll come to your house after the meeting and you can show me some music. So he pulled out a guitar and he starts teaching all this guitar stuff. And the first things he played was the same thing my mom played at home on 45 records. She played James Brown. And I'm like, whoa! So he starts playing the guitar parts. But what I noticed was that I wasn't listening quite as much to the guitar, but I kept listening to that bass. And I didn't play any instrument at this time. I was like, whoa, what is that? I'm going, man, that is too funky. I'm loving it. And so in that time, in the next basement, there was a guy next door who needed some money, and he had an old cheap bass. This thing was raggedy. And I went next door because I heard this through the wall, and I walked downstairs. I said, are you a bass player? He says, yeah, not really, but I need money badly. So I go, oh, look at that instrument. He said, yeah, I need money. I'll sell it to you for 10 bucks. It was a real cheap Korean type bass, but it was really cheaply done. Not that the Korean instruments are cheap, because I have Korean basses with Warwick. So I bought the bass, man, and the next thing you know, my ears just attuned to that instrument. I don't know why. I didn't try. I didn't pick it. So to answer the question or to tell you, I didn't choose the bass. The bass chose me. And I started playing as a young man, and in Harlem, you really couldn't go into clubs at that age. You still can't. 11 years old, they're not letting you in a club. So what happened was I would go sit outside the club. And I would sit out there with this cheesy bass and on a milk crate and listen. And it was a club called Small's Paradise and the Cotton Club. You remember that? Those are historic clubs. And man, I would sit outside that club, and this is a picture of it. This is Small's Paradise in the 1920s. And here we have in the 1930s and 40s. And right here, this is where exactly I used to sit outside the club right there and listen to the music. And I would listen to the bands play, and a lot of famous bands would be in there. A lot of famous musicians would play. And when they came outside to take a break, you know, in between shows, I'd be sitting there, and because they knew me after a while from sitting there all the time, they called me Young Blood. And I said, man, how did Chuck Rainey, all of them? I said, how did you play that thing Jimmy Smith would be playing?
I've seen Jimmy Smith play many times when we got to know each other.
Yes, how did you do that? And they would explain it to me on the streets of Harlem. So back then we didn't have internet. We didn't have www.whateverIwant.com. But what happened was I just traveled down there from the Bronx on the train, sat outside sometime in the cold, and my mother got angry because she said, you're a little 11-year-old boy sitting out there in Harlem with a bass. Somebody could walk by there, bang you on the head, take your instrument, or even worse. But I told my mother, man, the art of music, my passion and my love, I don't care. It's worth it to me to go down there and do that. So to start at 11 years old, that's how I started. And then when I started playing in clubs, back then they were illegal clubs. And what I mean are after hours, clubs that they kind of opened after hours because a club is supposed to close by like 2, 3 in the morning. These would like start at midnight and go to 6 in the morning. And I walked in the clubs and I started playing bass. And after a little while, you'd see the people in there who came to those clubs said, oh man, you're getting better and better, because my groove started getting better and better and better. And how that happened, my brothers and sisters, was my mother took me to the Apollo Theater on 125th Street. Got to find your own way. Sometimes you win, sometimes you And at the Apollo, I saw 15 James Brown shows. Kept going back and back and back. And how that worked back in the day was you would go at 12:01 and they'd show the Three Stooges, they would show Popeye movies, cartoons, boom, 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 boom all day, and I'd sit in the balcony and watch. Then in the evening you'll hear, ladies and gentlemen, the star of the show, James Brown. And he would come out. And I would just sit there with my mouth hanging open in the balcony, look at this man go. And one night, I think it was like 14 shows or something later, he was doing his last thing. Good God, hey, hey. And I knew he was about to finish because I knew his last song. I left the Apollo Theater. That was the night I wasn't there with my mom, and I ran around the corner. Now the Apollo's on 125th Street. The backstage entrance is on 124th Street, and it's dark back there. 125th has all the shops, the lights, the front of the Apollo, and 124th Street is desolate because it's residential. People live there, but it's not many lights. I ran to the back store, I knocked on the door, and the guard went, yes, sir, can I get in and talk to Jim? I'm sorry, nobody's allowed back here. And he closed the door, but I stayed right there in the dark. All of a sudden, the door popped open. Mr. Brown walked out, jumped in his car. I ran to his window, knocked on the window, and he rolled the window down and said, what? I went, Mr. Brown, man, I'm only 11, 12 years old. My dream is to play in your band one day. I love what you do. You are innovative. You're amazing. And he said, hey, stay in school. Get a job. Don't do drugs. Ha! You'll do what you do, make it. You'll make it. He rolled the window up and left, and I was in the dark. Believe it or not, 20-something years later, in the studio, his bass player was T.M. Stevens. And it was a Friday night, and Dan Hartman was producing, because I did a lot of records with Dan Hartman. We did a lot of things. Little Richard, Great Gosh Almighty, I'm playing on. Tina Turner, Simply the Best. I did that with him. And when we did James Brown, I played the whole album. And it was Friday, and the band was just finishing. And they left for the evening. It was a Friday night. Unfortunately, the background singers were coming up from New York to Connecticut, and they got caught in that Friday evening traffic. So James Brown went in the studio, and I'm the only one left. Everybody left. I said, I don't care if I have to take a train. I want to see him sing. So I'm sitting in the couch just watching quietly. And he's in there, ha, ah, station, station. And I'm going, oh yeah, look at him. And he said, no! And he came running into the control room and told the producer, Dan Hartman, I can't sing a song without the backgrounds. Then Mr. Dan Hartman said, well, what do you want me to do? You know, I can't fly them. They're in a car and they're in traffic Friday night. If I don't get the backgrounds, you're fired. So I'm just sitting there looking at this. And he's going, well, what do you want me to do, Mr. Brown? And James Brown was looking around like this. And all of a sudden his eyes went to me. That's the young man. I said, yeah, Mr. Brown, you don't remember me, but 20 years ago I said I wanted to play with you. And 20 years later, here I am. Good. He said, you're singing. I said, well, I don't sing at that age. You're singing. Okay. You can't call him James. You had to call him Mr. Brown. It was a respect thing back then. And the lead singers back then were really, ooh, you're singing. So he walked out of the studio and told him, when I get back from dinner, I want the vocals or you ain't working. He said, okay. So then Dan Hartman put a mic up. And I had Living in America. And all of a sudden he went, that's it, T.M. Stevens. And I did 8 tracks of that. And then he said, okay, we've got 8 tracks. It sounds perfect, but it's your voice 8 times. So you and I, meaning me and Dan Hartman, we will do 2 tracks together just to make it a little different. So, at the end of the day, he and I just did Living in America together. Mr. Brown got back from dinner and goes, what's going on? Listen to this. And when he heard it, he flipped. He goes, that is what I'm talking about. And I looked at Mr. Brown and said, Mr. Brown, I know you've met thousands and thousands of people over the years since I was 11 years old. But remember this. In the Musician's Corner, just for you folks, I said to him, Mr. Brown, I told you 20 years ago that I would be your bass player. Now I'm your bass player and singer. So, I said the moral of this story is follow your dreams and your dreams will follow you. I dreamt about it and here it is. So nothing is impossible. If you believe, you can do. And that's how I sang with Mr. Brown. And they loved it so much that I joined the Pretenders. You know, and we did that whole thing, don't get me wrong, but as I'm recording, they said, don't nobody play with nobody else. And what happened is in the evening, the producer flew over to London and I did all the rest of his background vocals so he liked my sound. So that's how I got started. One more time, I did not choose the bass chose me. Ja. Some of you may recognize that song. It was a #1 hit, and it was such a shocking thing because Narda and I was in his basement in his house in Queens back then. This was like the late 70s, and he said, let's just jam. So he got on the drums, I got on the bass, and there was no other musicians, and he just said, the rules are, hit a groove and I'll play with you, and when I say change, change. When I say change, change, and just keep going. So then we started jamming. Change. He would play. Change. Change. Finally he said, change. I went, he went, that's it. That's it. And the whole thing about it was, I didn't realize we played that song, and then we played it again, and then we went into the studio, and we recorded that song, and I played that bass line. And the funny thing about that bass line is back then it was really unique. Nobody had ghost notes like that, and nobody played like that. So that song became a #1 world hit. And the thing about it is a lot of times when musicians and artists make something to be a hit, say, let's just play this song to be a hit, a lot of times it doesn't hit. It's when you're not trying. It's sometimes when you're not thinking about things, they happen. I never thought in a million years that that would happen. Sure enough, I heard it all over the world. And when I was on tour with other bands and things, I'd go to the hotel bar downstairs from the hotels we're staying in, and they'd be playing that as a cover song, and I went, I don't believe it. And the guy said, how the heck did you do that? And I picked up my bass and went, oh, you really want to know? I went, and I said, all I'm doing is playing a 2 and a 4 and a snare and going. And it became a big hit. And after that, I tried to make hits, and things just didn't go quite as well. But some songs were great big hits. Some weren't. I did The Pretenders. That was like almost a James Jamerson Motown thing. You know, don't get me wrong. These things like these are classic. They're classic. So once again, we just jammed, and he kept saying change, and I hit that bass line totally by just inspiration, and there it went. It was a #1 hit. I Shoulda Loved Ya. Get funky one more time. Well, all those years I've been playing, I was living in New York back then, and the music business was thriving to the point where we had a bass on your back, on your backpack, and everybody had their guitars on. There was a company called Radio Registry, because back then we didn't have cell phones. We had pagers in our pockets, and Radio Registry had the phone numbers of all the musicians, all the producers, and all the studios. So if I'm in the street, say, playing with, actually one day I was, Donna Summer. I was playing on a Donna Summer song, and the thing goes zzz in my pocket. When I'm done, I'll look at it. I'll call them back on a payphone, and all of a sudden I'd see, yes, can you go do a Billy Joel session at 54th Street? I'll be right there. When am I due? 30 minutes. I'd run over and do that, and I'm playing, keeping the faith, and at the end of the session I get a zzz in my pocket again, a vibration. I look at it, call Radio Registry. There's a jingle for a wine commercial or beer or whatever. I'd run and do that. And back then we had a business, and there were a lot of studios. The Hit Factory, I did a lot of records there. Billy Joel, Keeping the Faith, Minor Variation, I mean, just it goes on. And so the session business was thriving. Anthony Jackson, myself, all of us were just like constantly working every day and making a good living. So I did that for years and years, and that's how I got into Pretenders and played with Joe Cocker, because they actually said, can you come do a Joe Cocker session? I said, yeah, why not? And we sat in the studio and we did Unchain My Heart. And he said, Ray Charles did that song. I said, I know. He went, do 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 do, Unchain My. But I said, let me do it the way I do it, and I did it more like Sly, because I was into that kind of music. And that's what, because Larry Graham and myself have been friends for years, years and years. So I ended up playing it like that. Joe Cocker went, wait a minute, I like that. And he went, unchain my heart. And the next thing you know, that was a huge hit. And he said, would you join the band? And I played with him for 7 years and did 7 albums with Joe Cocker. Same thing with the Pretenders. I went in to record because they weren't getting the tracks fast enough from the other musician that they had. So they called me in and I sat there at the desk, wrote the changes down as it went, checked it out, and I went, let's try it. And I got like 2 songs done in an evening. And she went, I don't believe that. It was taking the guy like almost a week to get 1 song. And she said, can you stay over? I was up in Woodstock. And I stayed in Woodstock. And the next night, I penned about 3 more and knocked them out. Next thing you know, she asked me to join the band. And that's how I joined. So, playing as a session musician, at that time in America, in New York, you had to be very versatile to the point that 1 minute you're playing a Billy Joel song, the next minute you're playing a James Brown song, the next minute you're playing rock. You had to adapt to each thing, and that's what they called you for, and that's how you got popular, if you were able to change your groove. So 1 minute I'd be playing like that funk, the next minute, yeah, and the next minute you'd be going. So we had to be multi-musical and just be able to walk into a studio and quickly as possible get the groove, get the pocket, learn how to do it. I played with the almighty Steve Gadd on drums, and we were working with Roberta Fleck, and Steve Gadd taught me. It was on 30, actually it was so funny, it was on 34th Street in the studio there, and he said to me, TM, this is time. This is leaning on time. This is leaning back on time. He said within that parameter, it's in time. So you're not playing behind the time or ahead of it. It's just how you move within that box. So remember, this is perfect time. And in the box, you can move a little bit forward or backwards. He said if you pull back on some of that and don't go quite as lean on it, he says the groove is nastier. And I went, well, what do you mean by that? So he was playing a tune, the click was going click, 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 and I'm going do 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 do. He said no, do 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 click do do do. He said pull back on it, but stay in time, and it makes it nastier on that tape. And that's how I learned. And when you play live, of course, you want to jump on it because you're trying to get your audience revved up. But in the studio, you want to pull it back to get that nasty groove. Nextly on that is how you play. It's sound and space. Miles Davis even taught me that. He said, TM, sometimes it's what you don't play that makes you more perfect. He said, if you're going do 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 do, after a while the ear gets used to that. But he goes, wait, snare drum, guitar, bass, now you have a conversation. The bass going, hello. Guitar's going, fine. The drum going, thank you. So he says that's when you have that conversation. That's what a rhythm section is. That's what made the Funk Brothers so popular. Who are the Funk Brothers? The Funk Brothers are those guys who played on every Motown hit. I've been to that studio. I went and got the video, Standing in the Shadows of Motown, and most people didn't know who the musicians were. You know, Stevie Wonder would come in. The Temptations would come in, all those people, but there was one band in that studio that stayed all day playing with all the artists. And it's that conversation. So remember in the rhythm section, say, hello, drums, crack, crack, diddly, fine. Those conversations is what makes a groove. And that's how I became a session musician. And Miles Davis did change my life because when I met him and went to his rehearsal, I was so scared. I was like, oh, Miles. And Miles talked like that. In fact, I'm in his book, and you can see it right here. This is the Miles Davis autobiography, and I'm in this as I played with him in 1978, and I will never forget it. Wonderful. This is a picture in the book, and I'm in the middle picture sitting to his left as your perspective, and to the right if you're sitting from our perspective. I'm the guy that's sitting like right over his shoulder, and as you're looking at it, it's on your left, but actually In the picture, I'm on his right, but I'm on your left with an afro. And he said to me, he said, boy, it's what you don't play sometimes that makes more difference than the notes you do play, and what you leave out. And also, he said, have ears bigger than your head. And I went, what do you mean by that? He said, listen, because when you listen to the band, it'll dictate what you should play. If you're just playing because the first day at his rehearsal, I was playing all my bad licks. And I walked up to him, Miles, you like me? He says, you're all right. I went, what do you mean I'm all right? I played my baddest licks. He said, that's your problem. And I go, what do you mean by that? He said, when you're playing your baddest licks, you're not listening to the band. You're busy playing your baddest licks. You're not experimenting. Nothing is no magic. You're just playing what you know. He said, listen. And if the drummer plays something that causes you to play something different, which causes the guitar, which causes me to play something different on the horn, he said, that is true music magic. And he taught me that day, listen. And now when I'm playing with anybody, I'll listen carefully to them. And if I hear something that is knocking me out, if a bass line's going da-da-da, da-da-da, then the guitar goes da-da, and I go da-da. Now there's magic. Music is happening. And it's not so planned. And that helped me out because after Miles, I joined John McLaughlin, Mahavishnu, which was fusion. And then I joined up with James Brown, as you know, and played with him. And James Brown didn't play. He'd be singing, watch me now. And all of a sudden, if you make a mistake or you miss something, he'll point at you. Point at you. Point at you. And each point made $25 a mistake. And he only pointed at me twice because what he does is when he's going to the bridge, he doesn't say bridge all the time and go. He'll touch his ear. Bridge! And you have to go right away. But once you see him touch his ear, you know we're going to the bridge. And one night I was just looking at somebody in the audience. He touched his ear and went bridge. I missed it. Just by like one note. He went, that was 25. The second point I got was he looked down at my shoes. I was wearing sneakers. And he went, I said, Mr. Brown, why'd you point? Because I won't shine shoes on stage. I want the shoes shine, but you can't shine sneakers. Don't wear sneakers. So, you could get angry at that, but not me. It was good lessons. It was good learning. It was good teaching. And now when I'm playing with anybody, even if I'm looking off this way, I'm always looking at the singer. Peripheral vision. So if he moves, I'm there. He wants to break down, I'm there. And those things taught me. James Brown, watch. And then Miles Davis, he taught me, listen. So that's where it is. One love. And the session musicians made me play a lot of music. All right. People have asked me a lot of times because sometimes I'll play concerts. Like I just did a tour that I played 26 concerts all through Europe in 30 days, and that was almost no time off. And we played constantly every night, 90 minutes, 2 hours a night. And not only am I playing bass, but I'm the lead vocalist and the entertainer. I'm the guy grabbing the crowd, so there's really no laying back for me. I gotta constantly hit. And then recording sessions, and then when I'm here working, like right now, I have about 2 more songs to do for people, overdubs, and get them done. So the question they ask me is, how the heck do you get all that energy? Every time you touch your instrument, you go at it 100%. Well, I always tell the young people and the people in Musicians Corner here, whatever you do, be 100 plus. Not 99, not 99.9, but 100. And with me, music is my passion. It's my dream. It's something that, of course, nothing in life is always going to be always going up and successful, going. There's going to be roller coasters. There's ups and downs. There's times when you're going to be up on it, like when I wrote I Shoulda Loved You and played with Miles and all them. And there are times when you need work. So the money's not always going to be that way, but it's what I do that I love. Music is me. I'm music. And people say, well, TM, when you're not playing bass, what are you thinking about? Well, I say when I'm not playing bass, I'm thinking about playing bass. So it's not like Superman. I run into a booth and come out, TM Stevens, and I'm something different. I'm who I am 24 hours a day. And that's what I do. Nextly, when I told you we were recording and having sessions and having big studios like the Hit Factory. And the Hit Factory in New York City, man, was a big building. At least 5, 6, 7 floors, and each floor had major big studios. It's where I did Billy Joel, Keeping the Dreams and all those records. And then as the time went on, people started recording on laptops in their bedrooms and just using loops and not real music. And those studios shut down. The Hit Factory is on 54th Street in New York, and it is now an apartment building. And I'm going, whoa. And down the corner from there, on 8th Avenue, which is going west, used to be Sony mastering studios where they mastered records, and they mastered my most recent record, Africans in the Snow. I went back there about 3 months ago, and it's a parking lot. It's a parking garage. They just tore it all down, and now you park in there. So a lot of the major places are gone. Musicians aren't working as much because now it's, they push a button. And I'm not against it, but nowadays you loop things and you push a button and you have a sound that goes, eh. And then what you do is you put the bass drum on compression, and then you put a side chain out of the compression, so when the bass drum hits, the mix goes down, and when the bass drum's off, it goes up. So that's where you get that, and that's the whole song. And they don't need a bass player or a guitar player. It's all looped. So the studio's closing down, not really using real musicians, and everything is machines, has really hurt the business and hurt artists who played and studied, and that's what I did all my entire career. But the answer to this is you don't follow that and go, oh my God, and give up. Never give up. This is for the young people. Listen to me. Do not give up. Whatever it is that you believe in, whatever it is that you feel, follow your dream. I said it earlier. Follow your dream and your dreams will follow you. I meet James Brown in an alley when I'm 11, 12, 20 years later. I'm playing bass, so nothing's impossible. And I particularly believe we'll get our business back. And just to clear this up, I'm not saying that oomps is bad. I'm just saying, even though you have the oomps, you can still have real music. But the industry has cut the real music out for that because it's easier to make that and make money. So if you're in a studio and you loop everything, just go poof, 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 you made that real cheap and they can make more money playing that and putting that out, as opposed to having a bunch of musicians in the studio, having to pay for the studio, having to pay the musicians, taking longer because it's human people. But human dynamics are more important. If you listen to Led Zeppelin, James Brown, all those records, sometimes they play louder, sometimes they play lower, sometimes they play a little bit faster, slower, but those things are human dynamics. That's what makes the ear feel good. But if you just have a thing that you played 4 bars or 1 bar, and it constantly plays over, it becomes robotic. So I'm not saying it's bad music, it isn't, but I think we should have that music and real music. Don't cut any. Keep it both so people can hear both. So the business has changed. But young people, my advice to you, don't give up. Keep pushing forward, because the more of us that get together and keep playing that real music, it'll come back, because there's power in numbers. So if there's more and more and more and more of us playing that real stuff, it will come back, because there's a lot of us doing it. But if you give up and sit in your room and push the go button, then you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So that's my advice to you. I've had a great time doing this. Keep coming to Musicians Corner, because it's a lot of great artists. And it's my privilege to sit here and talk to you. And it's not like selling this or promoting that or a commercial or a magazine. It's just talking one-on-one music. And lastly, this bass. This is a Warwick TM Zulu bass. And people say, look at the artwork. It's unbelievable. It's the Lion of Judah. Shaka Zulu is on here. And they say, well, what is the thing? And I said, even when you hit the bass, you got lights. Because I'm colorful. and I like color, and I like art. So when I play, I don't only want you to hear it, I want you to see it. It's moving, living art. Then they say, what about this bass? Warwick. I said, not only, and don't be fooled that just because you see all this beautiful paint jobbing on the back, I put the kids of the world. I don't believe in color and all of that. I believe it's not the black race, the Egyptian race, the German race, the Swedish race. It's the human race. People are people. Everybody bleeds red. So in the end of the day, I said, I wanted to represent what I represent, and lion represents strength. Like I said, don't give up. Don't go, oh, the music business is gone. No. Strength. See that lion? Roar! Roar like a lion. Be strong. Push forward. Never give up. In this bass, people say it's beautiful and blah, 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 and the lights. But don't be fooled by that, because I went to Warwick in Germany. And in Germany, I helped design this bass. And what happened was they mixed the woods a lot of times to make it lighter and make it cheaper to make. But I wanted African babinga. I wanted the thickest wood so that when you plug this bass in, it has that sound, and the engineers in the studio go, oh my gosh, I don't have to touch a button. And it's because I didn't cut any corners. Warwick made this with the best woods possible, and it's a little heavier, but it's what I wanted. I don't care if it's heavy, if it's got that sound, so it's made out of thick babinga wood. And I mean, and then I said, well, making a bass like this is a lot of money. It's very expensive. What can we do? So I said, I have an idea. This bass is a neck through, which is more expensive. I said, make a bolt on, which means you have the body and then you bolt the neck on. That made it cheaper. And then I went to the Mesa, the music trade show, and then I said, let's make it even another model. The Koreans came to me and said, we'll make a better, even a cheaper model, mix the woods more. Then more and more and more musicians will be able to afford your TM Stevens Zulu bass. So we have 3 of them. We have the Korean model, we've got the bolt-on, and then you got this one. And just believe me, it's not just the decoration, because I don't want to play something that's all beautiful outside and cheesy on the inside. Because remember, as a musician, young people, what you're selling is not only your image and your look, you're selling your sound. So it's how you sound. And lastly, don't give up. Continue the fight. We do have we've got that thing where you have the oomsa and you got the real music. Whatever it is you believe in, whether you're playing oomps or whether you're playing real music, do it, and do it at 100%. So from me to you, I send love. Thank you for listening. Musician Corner, thank you for having me. Keep that funk alive. One love, TM Stevens. Yeah, finally, I'd like to say to you, as we leave Musician's Corner for now, I'm glad you came by to watch, and just to tell you that I was not born with a silver spoon. I was born in the Bronx, and we had no money. My mother, and the reason why I sat on those boxes outside the club is because we had no money to put me in school, so I learned everything on my own with no school, and we didn't have all that www.whateverIwant.com. I had to learn that by listening to albums and listening and struggling and fighting, and I got here. And just for the young people, old people alike, but more the young up and coming, nothing is impossible. And I came from living on the street. Me and my mom, she lost the apartment, and we were sitting on the street, and I'm sitting out there on the couch. And because I found, or the bass found me and the music found me, I was able to go from that to where I am. And I thank you so much. And this is just a short excerpt of some of the things I've done, and I can't even believe it myself, because I had my dream and my dream came. So young ones, last time for this video, Follow your dreams and your dreams will follow you. Much love. Keep that funk alive. Keep that groove alive. All love. T.M. Stevens for the Musician's Corner. One love.